Welcome to Tiny Bunny. So this game's been on my wish list. I thought it was like a full game, but apparently it's in early access right now. And the full game isn't set to be out until 2023, I think it said? Holy crap, man. Like, I don't even know. They must be doing a lot of stuff to it? I know... I don't know much about it, honestly. I think it's psychological horror. I know it is horror to some extent, so I think it's psychological. It is a visual novel. And there are choices. Whew. Get into it. Well, is the settings all good? Grief. Yeah. Good. Tiny Bunny looks adorable. What am I looking at? The wind clawed at my window all night long. It wandered the fields and howled like a hungry beast. An endless song weaved from all sorts of voices. Shrill, gentle, sneery, twined in the air. It kind of looks like a window that's been frosted over. They were shouting and laughing and arguing about something. Someone was running through the snow while casting long shadows that would occasionally creep close to my bed. Our house had a mind of its own, the creaky old mind of a building that had seen a lot in its days and was seemingly trying to share its wisdom with the inhabitants. The lonely house faced the forest, and the dark green thicket grazed back with its hollow eyes, rustling, whizzing, swaying back and forth. One could come out and stand at the edge of the forest to reassure themselves there was nobody behind the crooked trees. Fuzzy silhouettes swaying in the wind couldn't possibly do any harm. It's just a play of light and shadow. Just a play. I knew it was just my imagination. I was already 12 after all. Still. What's a fox? Episode 1, The Owl Will Arrive. I think they're going for 5 episodes, it said. And the game right now, as of me playing it, has 2 episodes done.
Убери книгу немедленно.
I did put this in English, so is that just using her native tongue? Glossary. Glossary's empty. There wasn't a language thing on here. It is in English, so maybe it's just their native tongue. Maybe they don't speak English. I don't know. So, if she says it, I'm not going to read it.
Сколько раз говорила, не читай за столом, вредно. Сидишь, сутулился весь.
I would be slouched whether I'm reading or not. I can hide it. That's the only thing I can do, though. The only choice. Oh, there was the window we were looking out of. I didn't protest and put the book about Conan the Barbarian aside. Really? I was stuck on a line I couldn't understand after reading it 3 times anyway. God, I hate that shit. Like, I'll be so invested in reading a book and all of a sudden I'll come to like a descriptive area where I'm just like, I'm trying to picture what the author had in mind when they wrote that scene, and I just can't. No matter how many times I read it, I just can't picture what they were trying to go for. It pisses me off. Olya had already finished her breakfast and was munching on some cookies. She was so enthusiastic, she almost looked like your typical girl from commercials.
Пока не съешь, из-за стола не встанешь.
Dude, my parents would, well, my mom would turn the light off on me in the kitchen when I was younger, because I would take so much time eating my food. I would still sit in the dark and just like nibble on my food. I didn't care. I, on the other hand, was still trying to drill a hole in the plate with my eyes, as if it would make the porridge disappear. What are we, the 3 bears? There's only 2 of us. Not including Mom. Easy anxiousness welled up inside, all because the previous sleepless night, the black forest around our house, and the gloomy wind. Maybe you shouldn't read Conan the Barbarian so much. The longer I waited, the colder the lumpy white substance became. It looked like a jellyfish from Kostya Odyssey. Love that show. Never heard of it. I wonder how horrifying the bottom of the ocean is. Absolutely terrifying. Place Subnautica. Or how cold the Black Forest is at night. The spoon fell out of my hand. Mom showered me with a cold glare from her green eyes.
Что я говорила?
She sounds Russian?
Я достану.
I had 10 seconds to catch my breath before battling the nasty porridge once again. I felt around for the spoon. What is this carved on the other side of the table? Karina. Ah, that's my mom's name. I guess she carved it out with something pointy when she was little. She sure was a rascal. Damaging the furniture like that. She would scold me for a week if I did something similar, though. Should I remind her about it? No, she's been in a bit of a bad mood lately. I imagined her being my age, sitting under this table. I wonder, was Mom afraid of the dark back then? Or the sounds coming from the attic? Or the thick forest? I imagined my grandma coming into my little mom's room, sitting at the edge of her bed where Olya sleeps nowadays, and saying this in her soft, smooth voice.
Тайга особое место, дитятка. Она к тебе присматривается, принюхивается. Словно хочет понять, что ты за зверь такой. Понравишься, в беде не бросит. А будешь проказничать, схватит за бочок и утащит с собой под землю.
What the hell? Who says that to a kid?
Тут и дело с концом.
Grandma was caring. She never fought with anybody, never yelled, never swore. She just said scary shit. Those were the times without demanding screams until late at night, without smashed dishes and mutual accusations. Our parents used to love each other back then. I remember listening in on one of their conversations by chance. They were talking about Grandma getting prepared for her funeral. She had already bought a casket, and she called it her cute funeral box. It waited for its time in the closet, patiently. Oh, that's so grim. It was black, upholstered with meat-colored material on the inside. I saw it when my grandma was getting buried. The house didn't change since the time she was alive, only all the photos were gone. glass-covered pictures with grey faces of my ancestors. They all had a dead but watchful look in their eyes. I crawled out from under the table. Olya was done with her cookies and was looking at my share like a sly woodland critter. You know, she got cookies and I got freaking... grit. I got grit. I turned my gaze toward the frosted window. There were a lot of dark pines outside, but they didn't grab my attention. Pattern of frost formed a picture on the glass.
Оля, гляди, лиса! Где?
It looked almost like those optical illusion thingies they put on the back of student notebooks. A mixture of lines at first glance, but if you blur your vision a little bit and look under a certain angle,
Да не на улице, на стекле. Смотри, вот нос, вот.
Ну-ка, доедай.
come on, Mom.
Да, да, сейчас. Я ничего не вижу.
Живо. Совсем немного осталось.
А, вот. Но все равно не похоже. А я говорю, похоже. Не-а.
She doesn't have an imagination, does she?
Похоже.
Прекратите! Ну что за дети?
Now I couldn't see the fox either. It disappeared. That's disconcerting. Went away. Only the frosty patterns, similar to stretched out nettle leaves, kept creeping up the glass. My dad entered the kitchen with long, measured steps. I want to have a beard like this when I grow up. Mom would always ask jokingly, "Come on, shave it off, it stings." This was so long ago. Nowadays, rumbling doors and witty comebacks were an everyday occurrence. Olya always covers her ears whenever she hears something like, "What's the point in all this?" through the wall. "It's all for your sake," Dad would reply. "For the sake of our family." I always caught every sound in fear of hearing the most dreaded, the deadliest word that started with a D. D-I-V-O. Oh, divorce. I don't even want to finish it. It was scary to imagine that me and my little sister could be torn apart and taken into two different families.
Да что твоя лиса? Вот у меня на окне сова.
Опять ты со своей совой.
Так ты же вчера мне верил.
Никто ключи от машины не видел? Вроде оставлял на подоконнике.
Вроде. Вроде оставлял, вроде нет.
Wow, what an answer.
Вроде взрослый мужчина, отец двоих детей, а вроде...
Way to push it.
Перестань, пожалуйста, Карина. Дай мне спокойно собраться.
В корзине твои ключи, возле телефона.
Огромное тебе человеческое спасибо. Антон, ешь быстрее, а то как мученик сидишь.
А сова?
Не было там никакой совы.
Была. Глазюки огромные. Во, и светятся.
Olya sprang up from the chair and placed her hands on her little face, imitating a pair of eyes with her fingers the size of an apple each.
В прошлом году бабай в шкафу, сейчас сова.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, in Slavic folklore, a nocturnal spirit used by parents to threaten their ill-behaving children. God.
Но я же видела.
Olya shifted her gaze back and forth from Dad to Mom to me, but couldn't find any support.
А ты не думала подружиться с ней, нет?
I'm just staring at the fridge like... I don't even care. I'm not here. I don't want this food.
Вымышленными мышами покормить, например.
Не подначивай ребенка. Просто мала еще, и спать одна боится.
Olya pouted her lips in rebellion and rushed into the hallway. The staircase that led to the second floor creaked. Mom gave Dad a strict look. Oh, that look in her eyes. It's so uncomfortable to be pinned under it. Good grief. Dad just snored in reply and left, ringing with the keys he just found. A minute had passed and the theme song from The Little Mermaid echoed through the house. It was stored on an incredibly worn-out cassette tape, which Dad already had to glue together once. It's so easy to fix objects, by gluing them back together, for example. But how do you fix a relationship? God, he's 12 years old. He shouldn't be thinking these things. Mom moved to the living room and I was left alone, anxiously stealing glances at the window. Olya had trouble sleeping ever since we moved to this house. Her, door works amazing, first off. Her eyes look like they're frozen, like she's been outside for too long. Her eyelashes, not her eyes. She would toss and turn or curl up into a ball under her blanket. Sometimes she would jump up in the middle of the night and turn on the VCR. Cartoons helped to take her mind off all the troubles we had with the move and her parents. What in the hell? Is that the owl? And then Olya said she saw that giant flying monster outside her window. She became obsessed with it. Our parents did everything in their power. They tried every little trick to get rid of these ridiculous fears. Olya refused to sleep alone and didn't believe the owl was just one of her nightmares. After last night, I was unsure what to make of my sister's words, what to think of it myself. Can nightmares be infectious? That night, I couldn't get a wink of sleep and ended up thinking of what to expect from my new school. There were a couple of days left before the beginning of a new term. My imagination drew long, twisting hallways that led to a classroom full of kids. But all the students behind their desks were simply dark figures cut out using a template. Circular holes gaped in the middle of their faces, and pairs of eyes blinked inside those holes. It was as if some completely different creatures were looking at me from behind the flat, black silhouettes. Their cruel glares, filled with icy sneers, made me shiver from head to toe. Will I survive here? Won't they gang up on me and beat me down? Stomp on me with their bloodied shoes? The damn school can burn for all I care. I just wish for anything to happen to it. Doesn't really matter what. I didn't want to go there that badly. I didn't want to see people who are just itching to smack me on the head, trip me up, think of a new offensive name for me, worse than the previous one. I felt like the glasses I wore made me an outsider of some sort or a monster. Or some sort of a monster. If I could read correctly. My gaze slid across the drawings hanging on the walls. I couldn't consider myself a great artist. Olya begged me to hang them. Drawing was the only thing that made me happy as of late. The small circle of friends I had also enjoyed my paintings, and they promised to call me from time to time. Sometimes I imagine Mom picking up the phone and saying in a cold voice, "You've got the wrong number." Or, "Anton is not around." Anton is not around. I imagine my future classmates lying in their beds, just like me, listening to the howls of invisible werewolves outside their windows. Maybe my new classmates will like me after all. But who would ever like a boy with thick glasses? I mean... I don't even know. Did Ralphie from A Christmas Story have thick glasses? He probably didn't have thick glasses, he just had glasses. But everybody freaking loves Ralphie. Holy crap. I mean, my dad used to wear glasses when he was little, and now he's married to the most beautiful woman on the planet. my mom. I don't know. Should you? Think of your mom as the most beautiful woman on the planet? Is that awkward? The house creaked, pressed by the wind. The condo we used to live in, a 9-floor concrete building, buzzed with the neighbor's drill, mumbled with a TV set from behind the wall, cried like a baby from the big family next door. Our current house, though I can't really call it new, was completely different. It was silent and easygoing during the day. Its shadows lay dormant in the corners, on the closet cobwebs, and under the stairs. But they all woke up during the night. Something was watching me from every corner. Almost as if the old photos of my deceased family, with their ashen eyes, were hanging on the walls in place of my drawings. With like little tiny sound effects. The floor was squeaking, rusty drains were moaning. The attic was occupied by noisy drafts. One could think the house was performing some sort of demonic melody. And then I realized I was, in fact, hearing music. It was already playing for a good while. Somewhere at the edge of my perception, I could hear a flute. It was mixed in with the sound of the wind, of the creaking old house, and my thoughts too. I stood up and rushed to the window. I wanted to reassure myself that this music was nothing more than a product of my imagination. It's not like someone is playing it there, amidst the cold snowy night, right? Can I not open it? Someone was dancing in the field. Well, that's interesting. It's like the Pied Piper, only they're not rats following him. They're forest creatures. Black silhouettes I could barely make out, with the dark forest as their backdrop. Please don't tell me he's gonna go out there. They jumped around, basked in moonlight, bumped into piles of snow, rolled around, and crawled on all fours. See, I see a bear, maybe a wolf, a fox, and a bird of some sort. And then maybe humanoid playing the music. Stories about wolves playing under the moon came to mind, but these were clearly not wolves. They stood upright at times, circled around holding hands and whipping up snow. The furries, you guys. Disappearing into the shadows for a brief moment and then coming back. Something bizarre was going on. Shadows dancing in the starless abyss made my imagination go wild, making me anxious at the same time. Suddenly, the music stopped. Shit, they saw me. The dancing shadows froze in place, and I could swear pierced me with their eyes. One of the silhouettes immediately parted from the bizarre shadow carnival and sprinted across the field with giant leaps. Well, that's not good. Alright, that was incredibly fast. It glided on squeaky snow without leaving any prints until it was devoured by the pitch black shadow of my house, which became even darker and thicker. My heart was jumping around like a bird inside of a cage. I shut the curtains with a swift motion and stepped back toward the bed. They saw me. A freezing torrent of fear washed over me. I stood in the middle of a perfectly dark room and listened to some unwanted guest scrape around, looking for an entrance. The sound moved to the right, then circled around the house. Now my guest should be at the front door. I jumped into the bed and covered myself with the blankets, as if it could protect me. Shackles of fear locked my muscles. I remembered the funeral, my grandma lying there, hands crossed on her chest, her facial features sharp like that of a tin doll. Ants running up and down the legs of chairs that held my grandma's casket. I imagined those little creatures climbing up her head and pulling up her eyelids with their tiny legs. What is wrong with your imagination? Then her wrinkly eyeballs would once again move inside their sockets and she'd be able to see her grandchildren. I was chanting the spell she taught me throughout the whole procedure. And now, lying under the blanket and listening to squeaks and howls, I was repeating the same words.
На острове Буяне, в Синем океане, стоит домовина, в ней сало и глина, волосы седые, чертям еда, раба Божьего Антона не тронут никогда. Бесы забудут дорогу к дому. Мертвый к мертвому, живой к живому.
Bizarre sounds had disappeared. I cautiously peeked out from under the blanket and saw curtains waving around like a hanged man. And then the night doused me with a new portion of boiling terror. The sound scratched on my eardrums. In reality, something or someone were scratching at the front door, hurriedly clawing at wood, demanding to be let in. The door was shut. Dad had become very cautious recently, so he installed a sturdy lock. I remember him staring at the forest intently as if he was looking for someone.
Мертвое к мертвому, живое к живому.
I hugged my knees, placing my chin between them, and drilled the door with my eyes. It was so flimsy and weak before the might of darkness. So it's nighttime. His parents are home, right? They should be, like, in bed sleeping, right? Nothing suggested otherwise? Shouldn't they be waking up from the sound, too? I mean, I figured they would be closer to the front door than us. Unless this technically is all in our mind. And then the doorknob twitched slightly. It turned halfway, once, twice, as if the person who tried to enter had no hands. The doorknob tilted once more, and then started clicking violently. My jaw cramped in fear. My wet fingers clutched the blanket. The door creaked and opened. Is it the tiny bunny? I mean, my god. The wind taunted me, moaning inside the tin drains. Now you'll see. The door was wide open. The darkness writhed inside the carnivorous mouth of a doorway. It was as if the night itself was calling out to me, flapping its black wings and squeaking with rusty hinges. I was trembling, ensnared by the web of darkness that hung in the corners of my room, waiting for the one who waited to come out of the gaping black hole. My abdomen tightened and my chest rose up, ready to exhale a desperate scream. But before I was able to do anything, the darkness asked me,
Ты спишь, Тоша?
"You little shit." My sister's pale face protruded from the thick shadows. I almost screamed from relief.
Оля, я не сплю. Что случилось?
Oya frowned and stuck out her lower lip, a clear sign that she was about to cry.
Она опять прилетела и пялится на меня. Прогони ее, Тоша. Прогони, пожалуйста. Я так боюсь.
The fear that was tormenting me just a minute ago crawled away and hid somewhere in my stomach. I needed to calm Oya down.
Это был сон, глупая. Не пугайся. Сны не кусаются. Никто тебя не обидит.
Oya sobbed. She was trying her best to believe me. Was I sure myself?
У меня есть идея. А пойдем к тебе в комнату, видик посмотрим. Спящую красавицу, например. Тебе же нравится этот мультик? Почему у спящей красавицы принца у меня эта страшная птица?
The question took me by surprise.
Ладно, давай посмотрим Золушку.
My thoughts became tangled, fuzzy. What was that? What studied me with its eyes while dancing feverishly under the moon? The darkness was clinging to the window, and it couldn't be fooled by Grandma's old chants. It couldn't be satisfied with a feast of lard and long ashen hair.
Тоша, ты идешь?
Am I?
Да, сейчас.
Jesus. Alright, we died. That's why I didn't want to laugh at Olga and her owl in the morning. Who could be visiting us here, in the middle of nowhere? We don't know anyone around here. So persistent. I felt extremely unsettled just from a silly thought that our morning guest could have come from the woods. I could barely hear voices coming from the front door. My mind was urging me to hide. In the closet? Under the table? Behind the curtains where Olga always hides?
Тоша, подойди-ка сюда.
I felt like kettlebells were tied to my feet, but still dragged them toward the hallway. A couple of policemen towered over me in the doorway. They smelled like frost and worry. My mom always winced and grumbled the moment she saw patrol cars. Worse than bandits. At the moment, though, she looked somewhat confused.
Здравствуйте.
The senior officer, who wore a grim expression, nodded.
Тут мальчик вчера потерялся. Вовой зовут. Глянь, пожалуйста. Ты его не видел?
The policeman held out a photograph to me. There was a ginger boy around the age of elementary school, pictured with a wall carpet as a backdrop. He had a striped cat in his hands and wore a wide smile.
Нет.
Точно? Посмотри внимательнее.
Где мне его видеть? Я тут никого не знаю, да и из дома-то почти не выхожу.
А может, видел в окно?
Да, у тебя ведь окна на лес.
The window.
Нет, не видел.
Well, unless he's dancing with the wolves, no.
Ясно.
He sounded tired, but his eyes, his stare, long and heavy, was full of suspicion. I squirmed unwittingly under the weight of guilt, which has giant shadow cast over me. The policeman finally tore his eyes from me and glanced over the hallway, the stairway and the cracks in the ceiling, which I hadn't noticed before for some reason.
Вы, кстати, как на новом месте? Попривыкли уже?
It's terrible, I hate it. It's atrocious.
Понемногу, только вот дочка маленькая по городу скучает.
Скучает, значит. Из местных вас никто не беспокоит?
Все хорошо, спасибо.
The policeman pierced through me one more time with his gray eyes. My head started spinning.
Может, вам помочь как-то?
I asked that in a shaky voice to look like a polite boy and to end this unpleasant conversation sooner.
Я вот стою и думаю. Ты, малец, на племеша моего похож. Шустрый парнишка твоих лет. С такими же окулярами. Все книжками зачитывался, детективами. Когда летом погостить приезжал, говорит, что в школу милиции мечтает поступить. Как я, хотел людям помогать. Смекаешь?
I felt uncomfortable, as if a distant relative and not a police officer stood before me.
Ох, ребятушки, сидите-ка вы лучше дома. Не ввязывайтесь ни во что. Жизнь сейчас совсем другая пошла.
Mom interjected in a cold voice.
Мне ли не знать?
Ну да ладно. Ты, Антон, в каком классе учишься?
В 6-м.
Друзей-то на новом месте еще не завел?
Пока нет. Я только после каникул в школу пойду.
Тогда вот вам на всякий случай мой номер. Звоните, если узнаете что.
The policemen were gone, along with their shadows. The smell of cheap cologne and the photo of a smiling boy. His face still stood before my eyes. I wondered what it was like for him, being all alone, there. For some reason, I thought of the forest swaying in the wind. What did his poor parents feel? And what would my parents do if I'd gone missing? Would they cry and thrash around hysterically? Or would they accuse each other, like they always do, and forget about me eventually?
Мам, а Вова этот в нашем лесу заблудился?
Выходит, что так. Бедный ребенок.
I looked out the window, at the road. The police UAZ drove off toward the village. UAZ, a Soviet and Russian off-road freight passenger car brand which was produced on the Ulyanovsk car factory. The officer's nephew came to mind when I was splitting off old paint from the windowsill. I remembered all the teenage mystery novels from the Black Kitty series I've read this summer. Black Kitty, a series of contemporary Russian original or translated teen mystery books. Your average boys and girls investigate all sorts of mysteries there. They looked for clues, spied on suspicious people. He's gonna go out to the forest and look for clues for this missing boy, isn't he? And after a set of amazing adventures, bam, solved any complicated case. They became local celebrities and must have made their parents very proud. I noticed a trail of policemen's footprints that led to the forest. And then it clicked in my head. Why don't I start an investigation of my own? Freaking knew it! Maybe I'll find that lost boy. And I'll get a reward. Olya will be so happy. And not only Olya, Mom and Dad too. Maybe they'll even forget about their quarrels for a while. Maybe I'll even save us from the D word. I fantasized about buying Olya a Tamagotchi. God, I remember owning Tamagotchis when I was a kid. They always died though, because I'm terrible at keeping them alive. And getting a cassette player and a bunch of tapes for myself. And a whole box of Kinder Surprise. When was the last time my parents bought us any toys? Last autumn, I think. My dad had lost his job at the time. There's that annoying song about it. Accountant. A song by an all-female Soviet pop band by the name of Kombinatsiya. Combination. That became widely popular in the early 90s. I had little to no idea what was the accountant's job like. To count money, I think. Neighbors used to envy us. But nowadays, Mom and Dad barely had money to afford sweets, and Dad would always divide a single chocolate bar between me and Olya. Sometimes I gave her my share too. No matter how much I wanted to eat sweets, she was still just a pipsqueak. I couldn't wait to go out looking for clues.
Пойду погуляю.
Ага, сейчас. Чтобы потом милиционеры с твоей фотографией по домам ходили. Лес вон какой густой.
Aw, Mom, come on. I'm a detective.
А если мальчика звери дикие утащили? Или того хуже?
Even worse, echoed through the hallway. Something like a werewolf?
Да я рядом буду. В лес не пойду.
Что я тебе сказала? Мне дважды повторять. Лучше портфель собери или соли поиграй.
That sounds so much more fun. The sound of splashing water came from the kitchen. It meant that the argument was over and Mom had the last word. Just because she had the last word doesn't mean I can't sneak out. Oh, I can look at things. Wait, turn that off. Oh. This cross had seen so many people come and go in this house. It was black, as if it absorbed all human sun for long years. It was hanging under the ceiling. After my grandma died, Mom was going to take it off and hang a horseshoe in its place as a lucky charm. But she cut herself with the cross sharp corner and almost fell from the stepladder. Dad called it a sign from above and ordered the cross to be left alone in its rightful place. Why don't you turn it upside down? My parents prohibited me from making long-distance calls, but from time to time I really want to hear my old friends. Sometimes I would just pick up the phone, listen to the low hum of the zoomer and the distant crackling, imagining the wind howling in the ice-leaden chords. I really like the subtle sound effects of hovering over items, meaning you can click on them. Mom's peg top, family relic. My mom played with it when she was little, then she gifted it to me. Olivia was next in the succession line, the toy belonged to her now. She stared at the dancing spindle as if it could show her something, fairy tale or maybe even our future. Now, even my little sister was a bit too old for the old squeaky peg top. The dark, stuffy closet. Can we take that axe? Is this gonna be like Little Red Riding Hood? We gonna be the lumberjack that kills the big bad wolf? We take that axe. Mom says it smells like mice. But how would she know their smell? She hates when I stick my nose in there. She's afraid I'll cut myself on the freshly sharpened axe. And Olya can't even be lured close to it. She thinks Baba is living there. I tried to help her fight her fears once. I opened the door and turned on a dim lamp so she would see there was nothing but cobwebs, Dad's tools, and scratched walls. She still didn't believe me. And I like to hide in the closet and listen to Olya count outside. 1, 2, 3, better hide from me. And then drag her feet on the creaking floorboards, hoping that she wouldn't need to look for me in the cramped monster's den. Huh. The decrepit and stain-covered calendar was once my favorite form of entertainment in Grandma's house. I remember waking up and running to the kitchen so I could tear off yesterday's leaf first thing in the morning, as if the coming day would get lost in the taiga forest without my help. One day closer to New Year's, one day closer to Grandma's funeral. I haven't touched this calendar for years now. Since the time they started writing dark and spooky death chants that only made me gloomy instead of funny proverbs and superstitions, to be exact. I grabbed a dusty calendar leaf with caution and it tore off effortlessly. Sadly, the spooky descriptions from my childhood were still there. 7 horses carry the log. If 7 can't carry, bring the 8th from a fairy. They will take it away and never come back. This is the fate the log cannot escape. I crumpled the gray leaf and threw it into the waste bin, hoping to get rid of the anxiousness that washed over me. It was spreading inside me like an ink stain on blotting paper.
МЧС России объявила экстренное предупреждение из-за неблагоприятных погодных условий. По прогнозу синоптиков, к региону приближается циклон, из-за которого ожидается сильный снег, метель, заносы на дорогах. Будьте осторожны и берегите себя.
And we want to go outside. took a peek at Mom's crossword. She would get very angry when someone gave her advice, so me and Dad faked knowing the answer and being about to reveal it all the time. I smiled at that fleeting thought. Vertical, 9 letters. The name of the Philistine deity that protected them from viper bites and had a nickname, Lord of the Flies. Lord of Flies. Dude, I love the Lord of the Flies. That's such a good movie. And I read the book, but I can't really remember the book, but I definitely remember the movie. And it was just like, it's something I would rewatch over and over again. Second letter is E. Okay. Grandma kept ice cream for me and Olya there, but now I could only see meat bits for soup and clumped together pelmeni. I grew to hate them already. Pelmeni, a Russian variety of dumplings made by boiling thin, unleavened dough filled with mincemeat. What? One may even call it Russian fast food. That sounds terrible. Can we actually... The side of an old ocean freezer was checkered with my childish drawings, Mom's recipes, and all kinds of stickers from bubblegum with dinosaurs that Olya liked so much. Among that still life picture hung a piece of ruled paper with the phone number of the police officer who visited us. First Lieutenant Tikhonov, I read inside my mind, looking at the officer's sprawling handwriting. The scrap of paper was held by 2 pieces of a broken magnet from some old Soviet toy, and those pieces just barely covered up the numbers as if to taunt me. I leaned toward it to unveil the mystery and take the piece to a safer place where it would wait for its time when I would finally find Vova and would be the first to call the police with the happy news.
Антон!
Huh? Mom's reproachful eyes stared at me.
Зачем тебе? Не трогай, потеряешь же.
Angering my mom was the last thing I wanted, so I lowered my hand. It was difficult to lie to Mom, but there was no other way for me to run away from home.
Мам, там что-то с телевизором случилось. Картинка какая-то тусклая, и экран весь в полосах.
Mom's face became visibly distorted.
Без ножа меня режешь. Дострелялся в уток своих.
Shooting stupid ducks? Is she talking about Duck Hunt?
Говорила же, посадите мне кинескоп своей приставкой. Где мы
She
теперь
is.
мастера найдем в дыре этой, а?
Может быть, просто настройки сбились? Сходи, посмотри, пожалуйста.
Нормально же работал с утра.
Из-за снегопада, наверное, неполадки.
Mom rubbed her hands clean on her apron and went to Olya's room. I'm gonna take this. Useful connections. Wait, is there something else? No, nothing else. Thought maybe the window. We're out of here, baby. I opened the front gate and went to the field. Carefully, so Mom wouldn't see me from the window. When I crossed half the distance toward the forest, the snow piles became as high as my knees. I remembered my nightly fears. I saw those silhouettes around here. They were jumping around, holding hands. Hypnotizing music started playing in my head all on its own. In the light of day, these distant figures felt like a simple dream. The sun turned my nightmares to ash, but the aftertaste was still there. Distant ringing in my ears, distorted shadows crawling on the snow alongside me, and a barely audible whisper in my head, blurry and almost kind. Everything was silent. So silent I felt like the world was totally empty. No ground, no sky, no parents, no Olya. The time reached its limit, a one-way trip that ended at the forest's piney stockade. Sometimes silence was much scarier than any scream. Our parents would scream at each other while arguing. Both me and Olya turned to stone, listening to them. But then always came the ringing silence. Our apartment became numb a couple of days before we departed. It was hard to remember the last time Mom and Dad joked around, laughing or spent time together, almost like all of it was in a previous life. When they kissed with Olya present, she was always frowned and snorted in a funny way. But one day it all changed. Something important had left our home, and something scary filled the remaining void. It was as if a fire broke out, and our parents were hurriedly packing our belongings, trying to save themselves and us. From who, though? From the people with dead, cold eyes who sometimes visited us in our previous home? The eyes that only saw balls of worms on a black ground and everything? And somewhere far away, a siren was going off, trying to warn us of the coming menace. Look at us. I shuddered, chasing away my delusions, and looked around. There were only me, this white field, and the wind that was whipping up icy dust and belts of powdered snow. All Mom has to do is open that door and be like, "What the hell are you doing?" I squinted from the sun and turned my eyes to the sunless forest. It looked especially dark in contrast with the blinding whiteness. Knobby tree roots slithered into the snow like fat snakes. Rotten leaves and coniferous needles froze into the ice. Dry, prickly branches intertwined, bringing up uncomfortable thoughts about fences. Were they protecting the forest? Or were they keeping something from breaking out? Some object was hanging from one of the pointy branches. I tried to get closer, drowning in snow, and when I almost got to the edge of the forest, I saw a knitted mitten. It looked like a wounded bird among the hungering semi-dark. Did I take it to the police? Their senior officer looked gloomy, but he still reminded me of Captain Casanova from my favorite TV show called Streets of Broken Lights. A Russian mystery TV series telling a story of the daily life of Russian police officers. It's the longest running series in the history of Russian TV at the moment. Really? That's interesting. He was also always anxious, with a tired look in his eyes, but still brave and strong. Will this mitten help them find the lost boy? Vova! I heard a distant shout. Looked like it came from the river. Vova! As if the trees were calling out to someone. Vova! Resounded closer to me. Someone was standing there, behind the trees, hiding. Vova. I knew someone was looking for the lost boy. Still, something was unsettling about that figure. Its stillness, how it was bent unnaturally toward the ground. I don't see anything, except a glove. It's blackness. There's no one there, just branches and roots. It's all just my imagination. A nearby bird flapped its wings loudly. Alright, there's something there. A shadow split from the tree and disappeared from my sight. I looked away for just a moment, but when I turned my gaze back to the same place, it was gone. So it was my imagination after all. Silence reigned for a painfully long time. There's footprints. My muscles were tightly sprung, my heart was beating somewhere in my throat. Any noise, any little movement, any small whisper from the thicket and I'd sprint. But nothing of the sort happened. I looked at the mitten once more. Take that mitten. I decided to take the lonely mitten from the branch. Might have been a horrible idea. Vova! Oh god. Am I supposed to click on it? I stepped toward the bristly trees and tried to claim my find. It didn't budge. I pulled harder, the branch cracked and the mitten tore off, landing in my hand with a squishy sound. All too heavy, wet. Oh god, what's inside it? That's not good. I squeezed it without thinking and something dark spilled from it, forming a tiny string between the mitten and the snow. Steam rose from the snow pile. I froze in place, studying my palms in disgust. Red. The sound of cracking branches invaded the silence. I didn't have to think twice before running away. Someone was chasing me from the darkness, breaking pine branches, closing the distance with giant leaps. Snow was slowing me down, crazy thoughts flew through my mind. I'll get caught. They'll get me. I'll get dragged into the thicket. I'll be gone, forever. But there was one more voice, probably one of reason. It gave me strength, spurred me on. You can do it. Don't stop. I heard an animal roar behind me. It was so loud my ears went numb. It felt like the sound had come from a pack of hungry beasts rather than a single one. Their nostrils sucked in freezing air. They sensed my fear. Two giant wings flopped above my head. An enormous shadow flew over the clearing. A hoot, a wheeze. The roars were coming from all directions now. From the dried up raspberry bush, from the twisted pines, from under the windfall. Hurry, run, don't look back. I felt like I was inside a nightmare. The snowy clearing became vicious like quicksand. I was stuck in place. I pulled my leg from the mushy trap just to be caught in a new one, even deeper than before. I continued to drown, sinking deeper and deeper with every desperate push. Was snow ever this sticky? I screamed in horror after realizing that this wasn't snow. Someone or something in the snow pile was clutching my pants. I gathered all my strength and rushed forward. The pressure on my leg was gone, my boots slipped out of the hole and my soles were on a hard surface again. I reached a clear path for one jump and from there ran to my house. Its gloomy facade didn't look threatening now. The house was my line of defense from the shadows that flapped their wings and the creatures that were hidden under the snow. I tripped over the doorstep and smashed into the door. In all my hurry, I still managed to notice the claw marks, as if a dog was striking the wood with its paws, demanding to be let in so it could escape the cold. I hadn't noticed these marks when I was leaving. The heartbeat in my ears was much louder than my surroundings. I couldn't hear whether someone was following me or not. What if they were already in our front yard and Mom had locked the door? Drowning in fear, I pulled on the doorknob and it obediently gave way. I rolled into the hallway and shut the door behind me. Porch planks creaked as my pursuers ascended the stairs. My fingers slipped off the lock and I couldn't click it into place. I gritted my teeth and pulled hard on the iron knob, whipping it between the boards. I stared blankly at the door. Someone was standing on the other side of the pitiful flimsy barrier that's probably less useful than blankets. Wheezing breath reached into the house and crashed at me in waves. It smelled of pine and sweat. Mom peeked out of the kitchen and chastised me with the same frigid voice she always used when talking to Dad.
Что конкретно тебе не ясно в просьбе не хлопай дверьми?
I'm surprised she was like, what did I tell you about going outside?
Я случайно.
I snuck a glance at the door. The smell was gone, the breath was too. If there was someone in the first place, of course. Here, mere 5 meters away from Mom, my fear was slowly weakening, melting like snow in spring, and with it the last bit of strength I had left my body too. My legs gave way. I propped myself up against the wall so I wouldn't fall over. Mom's expression had changed immediately. The cold mask of strictness and detachment was gone. Mom looked the same as before all those quarrels. She finally saw my condition, my wet pants plastered with snow.
Ты где был? Я тебе что говорила, а? Чтобы ты дома сидел. Я и для тебя пустое место.
I got afraid she would cry. I reached out to her like when I was very little and wanted her to cuddle me. But Mom regained her composure fast and put on her usual face. Her eyes shine like steel. Her voice rang out.
У отца сигареты пропали. Признавайся, ты их стащил? Курить бегаешь?
Там за мной кто-то гнался, и я думал, меня...
I stuttered as soon as I started explaining myself. Tears welled up in my eyes. Mom leaned toward me and sniffed my clothes like a beast, searching for the smell of tobacco. Then she squinted her eyes in suspicion and looked into the front yard. Her expression changed in an instant, and she covered her mouth with her hand.
Гляди, вон же они. Прямо у забора.
My heart started thumping as if I became prey once again and my pursuers were following me in the field. I could swear that I've heard something scratch at the door, just like in my nightmare. We dropped the glove, didn't we? We still have blood on our hands though, if that's blood. If that's not make-believe. I still don't know if this is all in our heads or not. Did we, like... Is this house built on cursed ground? That's the only thing that I can think of right now. Mom beckoned me with her finger and I gathered all my remaining bravery to look into the kitchen window, facing my fear. I could barely discern some hairy silhouettes swimming in snow through the icy winter patterns on the glass. Dogs. Just a small pack of strays with no name and owner, barely reminding of the hungry monsters that live on the edge of the forest.
Божечки, ты их испугался? Да они сами тебя перепугаются, Антон.
They sure as shit weren't scared of me.
Они гнались за мной, словно за зайцем.
Oh my god. Am I the tiny bunny?
А вдруг они бешеные?
The smile slowly disappeared from Mom's face. Now she looked at the dog as if it was her first time seeing them.
Что если они нападут на Олю?
Мам,
Вот бы твой отец их всех перестрелял.
Wow, her attitude changed quick.
мама, они живые.
А что? Ты уж определись, они тебе друзья или враги? Не маленький ведь уже.
Well, some detective I am. In reality, I wasn't risking my life among monsters, but rather my pants among a pack of stupid strays. And what for? What use do I have for this? Mitten. Of course. A dark and sticky mitten that belonged to the lost boy made a squishy sound in my hand. Seems like I was clutching it the whole time. Oh, he didn't drop it. I thought he dropped it when he saw the mitten wasn't in his hand! When he looked at his hands and saw the blood. Red. That's my trump card as a detective. I hurried to present this clue to my mom.
Мам, смотри, это Вовина
Oh,
варежка.
oh god, put it over the sink, for God's sake.
Ну того, про которого утром милиция спрашивала.
You don't even know if it's his mitten.
Она вся в крови, на дереве висела. Вон там, могу показать. Давай в милицию скорее позвоним, как нас участковый просил. Мам, гляди! Фу!
A shadow of doubt slowly crept onto Mom's contorted face, as if she was trying to remember something distant, like someone tries to remember their dream, but the image slips away.
А ну-ка прекрати сейчас же. Оля тебя услышит, с ума сойдет. Она и так не спит, на все подряд жалуется. Еще и ты со своими шуточками.
At that moment, I realized the mitten was actually wet from snow. There was no blood whatsoever. I wanted to sink through the floor from embarrassment.
Иди сюда, паникер. Да не стой столбом. Вот, таблетку на. Быстро пей.
Pills? I take pills? A golden-colored pill, reminiscent of a dead wasp, fell onto my
Я
palm.
уже пил сегодня, за завтраком.
Попререкайся мне еще. Сказала дома сидеть, нет же. Был бы отец, выпорол. Сейчас же выпей, а то ночью не уснешь. Тебе ведь в школу завтра.
So I had to swallow the bitter medication, drinking it down the similarly awful water that gave off a taste of chlorine. Maybe it wasn't Boba's mitten. Maybe it wasn't a mitten at all. Just like the forest monsters. And Olya's owl. Am I going mad? What's happening to me? Either the pill had an immediate effect, or my overexerted brain didn't let fear us inside anymore. Serenity washed over me, bringing yawny indifference along with it.
Антон, выпил? Можешь, если захочешь. Раздевайся. Уснул, что ли?
Нет, мам, просто задумался.
Интересно, о чем же?
You don't want to know.
Так, глупости всякие.
Mom scrutinized me with suspicious eyes. As if she wasn't sure she was looking at her own son and not some doppelganger that came from the forest.
Точно все нормально?
No, apparently not.
У тебя такое лицо было, когда милиционер про окно спросил.
Все нормально, мам.
She heaved a deep sigh.
Хорошо.
It seemed like the house had changed. The sofa's fabric had become discolored. Fingerprints appeared on the bathroom tiles. The light bulbs also felt different, dimmer and yellower. Even the saliva inside my mouth had a different taste. A melody from Aladdin could be heard from the upper floor. Olya was done rewatching her favorite Little Mermaid episodes and switched to other tapes. I slowly changed into my home clothes, stopped before the sink and studied my reflection in the mirror, like I was trying to solve one of those spot the difference puzzles. Then I went upstairs. Jafar's and Iago's voices died down. I walked past Olya's bedroom and slipped into my own.